What's up, y'all? Welcome back to the channel. We are continuing the Course Madness bracket. We're into the final four already. Before we get into it, I wanted to plug some merch. I've got Mint Royal Soft bullets, so softer putter, a little grippier. If you haven't putted with the bullet before, it does have a little micro bead. I'm not a bead guy, but I do like these. It's my main putter. Eternal Soft bullets. These things are gummy, they are grippy, they're awesome in these wet spring conditions. A little bit more stability than the first run Eternals. If you've been watching my channel for long, you know that I love a good mint bullet. Got 2 bullet aces last year. First ace on the channel, mint bullet. Up next, I've got some Apex Swirl Grackles. This is gonna be similar to your favorite neutral 7-speed, so kind of like a T-Bird. This one's pretty sick with the money foil on there. Regular Apex Grackles, I've not noticed a huge stability difference. I think these should be a tick straighter. I haven't had enough time to conclusively test that. And then last but certainly not least, Glow Freetails with the disc locker stamp on there for all these and that radial. I think there's like 12 or 13 of them on there. Anyways, I've got those, so hit me up in the comments below if you would like one of those. But enough about that. Why you clicked on the video, we've got the final four. Got some heavy hitters. This is not going to be easy. I am honestly not looking forward to the comments because so many people love each and every one of these 4 courses that are left. We've got Pterodactyl Ridge at Dino Hills coming up against Zebos in Benbrook. Dino Hills is down in Glen Rose. Dino Hills, private course, 20 bucks to play. The whole property, you've got 3 courses on the property, 2 big courses and a putt-putt. 4.8 rated per U-disc, and it is 8,200 feet long. Takes about 2 hours and 45 minutes on average to play around there. 10 flights of stairs and 7 par 4s. Zebo's Longs is going to be more comparable to that at 7,100 feet, still shorter. That's based on the current basket positions. Zebo's long to long is really long. I don't know if it's 8,200 feet long like Pterodactyl Ridge, but it's pretty long. Just over 2 hours to play, 7 flights of stairs, so a little quicker, a little less up and down, and it's kind of old school Ironman par 3 course. You could argue hole 1, hole 3, definitely hole 4. Hole 4 could almost be a par 5, but it's downhill. Hole 5 is almost 500 feet. That could be a par 4. Hole 9, it says 300 feet. I guess it's in the short position. Hole 9 sometimes though is really long. That could be a par 4. Hole 10 could be a par 4. Hole 12 could be a par 4. And that's kind of it. I mean, maybe 17 in longs could be a par 4, but that'd be a soft par 4. Anyways, got a lot going on for both of these courses. Zebo's, of course, is a free public course. Let's look at the attributes that are reviewed. So Pterodactyl Ridge, upkeep 4.8. Zebo's upkeep 4.4. I am hesitant to say there's a clear winner here. I mean, obviously Pterodactyl Ridge is rated higher, but not a whole lot higher. I mean, everything at Dino Hills is always in good shape unless there's like flooding going on, because that course is just well cared for. There's someone there all the time. It also doesn't get as much traffic because it's a little bit outside of town, and it's open Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Unless you make a reservation, then it's open Monday through Thursday. Got to make that reservation. Zebo's though gets a lot more traffic. It's also more wooded, so there's a little more to take care of there. I'm hesitant to give one the nod over the other. Shot variety and design at Zebo's 4.7 versus the 4.9 at Pterodactyl Ridge. Yeah, both courses make excellent use of the land that they have. Pterodactyl Ridge is kind of bumped into the perimeter of the property because the Carnivore Valley kind of plays the middle of the property, so Pterodactyl Ridge surrounds it, and you have a lot more elevation on that part of the property and more woods. That actually has some wooded holes, whereas Carnivore Valley not so much. Zebo's similar. I mean, it's in the corner of a public park. It has the creek kind of flood plain areas that get really sticky mud, and then it has the high ground and the elevation. So very similar courses in that regard. They have a mix of everything. Tee areas, 4.5 at Zebos versus 4.8 at Pterodactyl Ridge. It looks like there's a lot more work that goes into the tee pads at Zebos, but part of that is due to the age and the erosion. So they need to put in more work to kind of mitigate time and weather effects against those tee pads. So like the tee pads are more built up more impressively. Dino Hills does have the advantage of like thoughtful current placements on the tee pads, so I don't see that being an issue. The only weird tee pad is hole 7 is awesome. That's on a deck. Play 7 and then you play 8. I think it's hole 9 where you're on like a small deck because it's in like a tight part of the property. You're on a side hill next to the property line. This is not my favorite tee pad in the world. It's just a little awkward. It is a short hole, like you can reach it. You don't need a huge tee pad. If I had to like, gun to my head, pick one over the other who has like the most consistent, better tee pads, I guess I would give it to Zebos, but I don't have any complaints about Dino Hills, and it is rated higher, but UDisc ratings are so subjective. Signage and wayfinding at Dino Hills, 4.8. Zebos, 3.7. Yeah. Zebos, if you don't know the course, it's easy to get lost without UDisc. Partially due to the age of the course, there are walk-off paths that are no longer in use, so it's not always the most intuitive thing of like where to go, or sometimes there's another tee pad in your line of sight that's closer than the tee pad you should actually be going to. And Pterodactyl Ridge does have good signage, and it's such a fresh course, even though there's like cattle paths and stuff. The walk-offs are pretty natural and intuitive. Also, the cattle paths have kind of been implemented into the walk-offs and like just the natural flow of the course. So I'd definitely give that to Pterodactyl Ridge. Amenities, 3.3 at Zebos, 4.6 at Dino Hills. Dino Hills has 2 porta potties. Zebos sometimes has 1, usually has none from my experience there. Neither have drinking water available. Dino Hills is a pro shop and camping and like the micro putt-putt course. Zebos does not have a pro shop nearby. For some reason, Zebos struggles to get a pro shop like attached to it. Like a lot of courses have a pro shop and that pro shop just dumps resources of running minis. They're improving the course. They're doing a lot of things. And Zebos, for some reason, like hasn't meshed with the last couple. You know, one recently closed, but that's been a theme there. One will open and it just like doesn't make it. It's very bizarre. But not to get into the tea of DFW disc golf. Amenities, Dino Hills. Pterodactyl Ridge wins. Scenery and views, 4.9 for Pterodactyl Ridge, 4.4 for Zebos. I think the prettiest parts of Zebos rival the prettiest parts of Pterodactyl Ridge. It's where you get outside of the course that Zebos really falls off just because in the metro, I mean, there's a couple of fairways just like a busy city street where you're neighboring, whereas some of the holes at Dino Hills, you're neighboring like the Glen Rose version of a mountain that's just like going up above the fairway and providing these like cool vistas that surround the property. Both have pretty creeks, both have pretty woods, both have pretty top of the world shots. It's just so much more natural at Pterodactyl Ridge. I would definitely give it the nod. So upkeep, we pretty much gave him a tie. Shot variety and design, we pretty much gave him a tie. Tee areas, the areas around the tees are definitely more built up at Zebos, but that's because they're like muddier and stickier and grosser. But 100% concrete tee pads. Dino Hills does have 2 turf decks. One of the decks is big and awesome and picturesque. They're a little like one of the top of the world shots there. The other one is like a little awkward. So in like a splitting hairs scenario, I would say that does hurt it. So we'll give 1 to Zebos there. Signage, wayfinding, no doubt, Pterodactyl Ridge. Amenities, Pterodactyl Ridge. Scenery and views, it's a tie or it's Pterodactyl Ridge. So without even getting to like the individual holes, I think Pterodactyl Ridge has it. Zebos has the tougher wooded holes. Pterodactyl Ridge is the tougher open holes. The elevation holes are tough at both. Pterodactyl Ridge has more uphill holes, which is actually kind of unique. There's usually so little elevation to work with on a lot of our courses that they just take advantage to have like the cool downhill hole. There's not a ton of uphill holes. I'm gonna give it to Pterodactyl Ridge. I think that's the better course over Zebos. Zebos is by no means a bad course. I mean, up against a lot of other courses, Zebos would make it into the championship. Final two. I think Pterodactyl Ridge just is like a bigger, badder version of what Zebos is. It has the benefit of being 20 or 30 years newer. So learning probably a lot from like what Zebos was and is. You can't go wrong with around it either one, but I mean, for your $20 and like all that Dino Hills is, a trip to Pterodactyl Ridge is second to none. Certainly not second to Zebos. So we're gonna give the nod to Pterodactyl Ridge and let them move into our championship round, the final two. On the other side of the bracket, we have the Roadrunner course at the Hideaway in Terrell versus Veterans Park in Arlington. Hideaway 4.8 rated per UDisc, Veterans 4.5. Veterans has over 3 times as many ratings. Of course, gets a ton of traffic. I mean, it's a public course and a very long-standing historic public course. The Roadrunner and Veterans both have long and short layouts. So in a lot of ways, they are similar courses, kind of how a Pterodactyl and Zebos are in like a similar lane. So is Roadrunner and Veterans. They're just private modern versions of classic courses. The long layout, which was recently featured on the Go Throw Tour at Hideaway, 8,800 feet, 2.5 hour playtime, up and down just 2 flights of stairs. So relatively flat, it has some mild elevation, but nothing huge. Veterans Gold is going to be similar to that at 7,600 feet, 2 hour round, up and down 9 flights of stairs. So there's a couple of top of the world shots at Veterans. Hideaway has none. Hideaway does have a pond hole and more creek holes than Veterans has though. And then the short layout, Roadrunner shorts, 6,800 feet. Veterans shorts, well, there's Veterans main and then there's Veterans shorts. The main at Veterans is 6,000 feet. That's going to be similar to the shorts at Roadrunner, and then 3,800 feet for the shorts at Veterans. So you've got 3 layout options. Although the golds at Veterans, you can't always play them. Specifically, hole 8 requires a spotter, so you don't hit like someone with their baby in a stroller or someone walking their dog or just someone. You need a spotter. So it's kind of a sanctioned play or special practice rounds that you do a little extra preparing. Hideaway has a bunch more par 4s. Veterans is a little shorter and more of a classic Ironman par 3 course. I mean, sometimes hole 1 could be a 4, sometimes hole 3 could be a 4, sometimes hole 12 could be a 4, and that's it. I mean, 14 in the long basket position is kind of a tweener, but it's still a 3. But Hideaway has, even in the shorts, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 par 4s from the shorts at Roadrunner. The attributes, we'll look at what people are saying about the course in their reviews. Upkeep at Veterans, 4.4, very high for a public course. 4.8 for Roadrunner. You would expect a private course to rate higher here just because there's dedicated time and resource, actual employees rather than volunteers taking care of the course. I mean, maybe they have people volunteer out there, but it's a business. So you would expect that from the Hideaway, but Veterans, no slouch in the maintenance department or upkeep department. Shot variety and design, 4.8 at Hideaway, 4.6 at Vets. Very similar. I do think Veterans has, I mean, it has a mix of everything. You know, if you're a forehand player, there's forehand lines. If you're a backhand player, there's backhand lines. Straight, not so much, unless you're throwing something stable that's going to hyzer out at the end, like on some of the blind shots. Hideaway, though, I mean, there's a lot of different shot shapes there, like early turning shots, late turning shots, late fading shots, stall shots. It definitely has more variety and a more modern design. I mean, Veterans, when it has been redesigned, but like some of those holes, I mean, T-Bird was a driver, like a bomber driver when some of those holes were created. So it's just a different era. Veterans makes excellent use of the land that it's on or been allowed to use in that property. That is a tough one because if Veterans had more room, it would have the length that the Roadrunner has. It just doesn't have the length or the property available for it. Tee areas, 4.7 at Hideaway, 4.4 at Veterans. So similar to Pterodactyl versus Seabows, there's just different things. There's more modern placements that haven't been eroded and challenged by drainage and wind and rain and just the ground changing over the years. Veterans, though, has done a fantastic job. The club there has done a fantastic job with building like little retaining walls and using railroad ties and using timber to mitigate erosion from flooding and runoff from the rain. I think all their tee pads are really good, and the areas are certainly more built up. The Roadrunner course, they just are plugged with that sticky east side of the Metroplex, almost East Texas, like sticky clay. I mean, I've gone there a week after a rain before and still had to deal with tacky, sticky mud, but that's separate from the tee areas. I think that's something the tee areas struggle with. They have put like pavers and stuff near a lot of those tees, so you have a good spot to scrape your feet off. And that has nothing to do with the teeing surface. It's just the ground out there. So I would give them a tie. Signage and wayfinding, Veterans gets a 3.6, 4.7 at Roadrunner. That's another side effect of just how old Veterans is. There's pin positions that aren't in use anymore. So some of the walk-offs like aren't intuitive because 10 years ago that was a good path, but now you actually need to go this way. Or there's like a little rabbit or armadillo path that like looks like it should be the walk-off, but it's not. And then there's also hiking trails like out on some of those wooded holes. So that is like a symptom that you have to deal with out there. There are some signs, but without U-disc, it can be tricky to navigate. Roadrunner, much newer. There's some areas where it gets a little weird, or you like intuitively walk to one tee pad and it's for the short and you're trying to go to the longs, or vice versa. You accidentally end up on the long and you're trying to go to the shorts. I would give them a tie. I mean, there's better tee signs at Hideaway just because they haven't been vandalized like they have at Veterans. Again, Veterans maybe getting a knock, but just because of how old it is. And it's not outdated, it's just been abused and used and abused more. Amenities. Veterans gets a 3.4. Hideaway gets 4.8. Yeah, Veterans, bathroom and water is going to be available later in the round, which is kind of where you want it. You know, usually at the beginning of the round, you're kind of replenished on those things. Hideaway, you have water and a bathroom in the restaurant or the pro shop where you check in and where you pay. So huge plus. Water, bathrooms, and it's a pro shop, and it's a restaurant. So that's one of my favorite things about going to the Hideaway is between rounds or after a round, like maybe I'm in a bit of a hurry and I like stretch my schedule to go all the way out there, I can at least get lunch and boogie home. So I have one less stop to make because you will be tired and you will be hungry after a round at Roadrunner. So definitely more amenities at Roadrunner. Scenery and views, 4.7 for Hideaway, 4.4 for Vets. I actually would give this one to Vets. I mean, the water and the tunnel holes in the woods are cool at the Hideaway, and there's some like really visually interesting holes, but it's Texas woods, so I don't know that I would call them like scenic or pretty. But there are 2 ponds, which is a nice plus. Veterans is a little more deserty, but there are some top of the world shots. There are some like beautiful mode fairways. Oh man, I don't know why I'm so yawny. So let's go back through them. Upkeep, I'm gonna give it to Roadrunner. Oh, well, I'll get to that in a second. Shot variety and design, I'm going to call that a tie. Tee areas, I'm gonna call that a tie. Signage and wayfinding, I'm gonna give it to Roadrunner. Amenities, no doubt Roadrunner. And the thing I forgot to mention is they have golf carts. They're pretty expensive. You have to reserve them, but they have golf carts, which is pretty rad. To not be on a golf property, but have golf carts. And then scenery and views, I would actually give that one to Veterans, but that's kind of a steep leaning towards private course, which going into this, I kind of expected the final 2 to be some private courses because they do have such a leg up. And I think they need to get more love as well because so many people don't know about them or don't venture out to them. So yeah, I'm gonna give it to the Roadrunner. It kind of hurts. Veterans is my home course. I I've filmed the VPO the last couple of years. I've even filmed some FPO a couple years ago for the VPO. And that's just such a rad course. I mean, the Hideaway is starting to get the roster that Veterans and the Veterans Park Open has had over the years. But Veterans is pretty star-studded as far as who has played on that course and whose rounds you can watch on Jomez, GK Pro, Central Coast Disc Golf, MX Disc Golf, the Disc Locker, or, you know, going back even further than all of the modern YouTube coverages. I mean, there's VHS tapes out there, you know, with some of the all-time greats of our sport, Hall of Famers, playing the Veterans Park Open at Vets. But I digress. Roadrunner is going to make it into the championship round, so one more video. If you're still watching, thank you. Please like and subscribe, share. If your favorite course has moved on or been snuffed, share. Let everyone know if my opinions are correct or if I'm a dum-dum. But we do know, especially Buffalo. Shout out Buffalo. I need to go back out there and visit because a bunch has changed since the last time I was there, but I'm more of a disc golf nerd than they are. So anyway, thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe. And as always, we'll see you out there.